Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to our fourth workshop series of forward thinking. My name is Marian Fantetti. I'm the Business Ombudsman with WindsorEssex and part of the Business Retention and Expansion Department. I'm joined by my colleagues Francisco Contreras and Yash Pagadala. Our colleague Wendy Stark is on vacation. On behalf of our President and CEO, Stephen McKenzie, I'm delighted to welcome all of you here today. As you know, we are the lead economic development agency in WindsorEssex, and Stephen has really been a big champion of this particular series regarding forward thinking. As he has been promoting knowledge transfer, even at the international level, as he was doing presentations last year there. So this particular forward thinking workshop number 4 is building organizational structure to support future goals. And it's our pleasure to work in partnership with the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Centre, the Odette School of Business at the University of Windsor, and AV Gauge to present the workshop today. There couldn't be a more appropriate time for our businesses to participate in today's information session. Today's presentations are more applicable now than ever as we witness the growth and development in our region. There have been many exciting developments for the WindsorEssex region that have really placed us on the global investment map and are creating many opportunities for our companies right here. That's why it's so important for our businesses and companies to prepare for this growth reality. Whatever your plans are for your business, one of the key components to your success really hinges on your preparation for a critical path towards knowledge management. Knowledge and intelligence are the foundation of workplace productivity and business efficiencies. Knowledge really drives innovation. So we hope that today's presentations will be resourceful for you and will also help you to see yourself and your business in some portion of the information shared today. Your success is important to us and to the region. So having said that, I just wanted to go through a couple of housekeeping items, and that being letting you know that today's session is being re-recorded, and this recording will be provided to you with a link to it after the session. Every one of the speakers will be muted, but until we begin, then we'll be hearing each other. We will also have a Q&A feature. So we're asking the audience that any questions that you have, please post your questions at any time in the Q&A function. And we as speakers and presenters will see the questions and we will address them in the Q&A session after each presentation. So now let us begin. Our first presenter is Dr. Bharat Maheshwari from the University of Windsor. He and his team at Future Lab have been instrumental in leading this forward-thinking series and assisting with planning and execution. He'll guide us through a suite of topics that will provide you with some resources, learning outcomes, case studies, and strong takeaways that you can bring back to your individual workplaces and start your forward-thinking process, regardless of the size of your business. Welcome, Bharat and team, and over to you.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for giving us this space. I know Stephen is not here, but he is a champion. And the work IWE and the region and the partners have been doing, we are all proud of. And I've started this lab at the Odette School of Business, and Laura will talk to you about it in a moment. But the starting point was the businesses in this region. And if you pay attention to our history in this region, we...
Oh, audio is off.
Brad, we're having a few issues with your sound. Brad?
Maybe I'll just take over here while we're sorting out what the audio issue is. We wanted to introduce ourselves briefly. Dr. Mishwari has been working with the University of Windsor and has a real heart and passion for this region that we live in and the businesses that are here that make this place great. And he began to put together a team of students and teachers and mentors who share those same values, who want to see our region grow, to see it prosper, and to see it expand. And we apply the latest research as well as experience in the academic and professional fields to help clients and to help our community at large grow and become more of what WindsorEssex can be, because we know that it's possible. As you can see, we do connect students and businesses with problem-solving techniques to unlock that potential, which is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. And I'll give you a little further. So we're pretty unique in the sense that we work as partners and teams. There are various different configurations of students and mentors that help different organizations based on mentor expertise and student interest, as well as business needs. So we provide that training, consulting, we run projects, and we also have the opportunity to connect students with meaningful work. We'd like to see the students that come through the University of Windsor actually do real work, not changing papers and moving files, but actually learn and do something that adds significance to their work resumes and adds value to our community. So that's the heart of who we are and what we do. Bharat, does your sound work now?
And I think you're under a different name.
Maybe we've got some different different things going on. All right, well, let's move on to the next slide.
Sure.
So, Paul, did you want to talk about this?
Excuse me. We basically have, this is our fourth workshop. First one began in September. And the common theme, all of this is knowledge, how it transferred, how you can transfer knowledge between workers. And today's focus will be on, if you want to switch it, the next one slide. Okay. Today we're going to be looking at 3 outcomes. One of them is appreciate the need for building a sustainable knowledge management strategy. So strategy is going to be one of the focuses. And also to realize that there's a lot of unmined knowledge in the expert workers. And one of the things we're going to be looking at is how that can be externalized. And finally, to look at the benefits of knowledge management structures, strategies, and methods to build a sustainable knowledge transfer infrastructure in your company. So the range here, what we call the spectrum of work, in all companies have a mix. I think that, nope, okay. All companies have got a mix of these, but there's a general trend from artisanship or craftsmanship and moving to automation and autonomous work. And we're going to be focusing in on that the general trend is towards autonomous work and knowledge work. In other words, a lot of the productivity that's coming in is not so much from physical assets, but from what we call intangible assets. And oh, here you are.
Sorry, Murphy struck in the machine I was on. I could not hear anything. But
Okay.
again, now we are in. But it's also an example of what we face today. what we face today is a lot of dependence on gadgets, which are autonomous, more so than before. We had automated work where we were putting the same things in the machine, but they were done by power. But here, what is happening is decision-making is with the machines as well. So we have a spectrum. We have a spectrum of work. And where do you stand? In some of the organizations, we have a lot of knowledge work happening, a lot of autonomous work happening. But in some organizations, there's still a lot of automated work and a lot of work done by people who are very specialized, artisan-like, that they only know how to do it. So on this spectrum, where we find is an opportunity. And where do we go? Where are we going in future?
And just for the small businesses or the other smaller companies, how you might wrap your mind around this is when your business starts, it's probably just you. So you're the artisan, you do everything, you wear all the hats. But when things go well, you start to hire people. You delegate work. In some ways, that's kind of automated. You basically provide instructions to people on how to do the work that you were doing, and they do it. Then ideally, you want to move from telling your staff what to do all the time to having a staff that knows what to do, that sees the work, that sees the important opportunities or the important activities that need to be done in the business, and they do the work, which eventually transitions into more of a knowledge work space. Where people often get stuck is that, okay, I have a staff of X number of people, but do the work. I always feel like I need to check it. I have clients who aspire to this autonomous work state, but also insist on fact checking and reading every blog 3 times before it gets posted. So that discourages their workforce from doing. They expect their work is going to be evaluated, undone, and redone. That problem stops right there.
And there is more to it. When you change our mix of work in any of these, really what we are doing is we're going towards the right side. And the strategies and structures to support autonomous work are very different from strategies and structures to support artisanship and automated work. So we have to understand that our interaction with our customer, what customers expect from us, our structure within the organization, how do we manage, how do we work, it's all changing. So what's next? What's next is we have to understand the difference here. We have to understand how automation is different from autonomous work. If you go to the next slide, Laura. We are seeing a change here, which is not only subtle, but very, very in deep as well, because the governance frameworks in automation is very different than governance framework in autonomous. So as Laura had said a little while ago, that the employees should know what to do. They should not be waiting for instructions in automation or autonomous work. And for that, what we need is a lot of clarity. That may not happen in ambiguity. And for that, what we need is a large amounts of knowledge transfer and a framework of knowledge work emerging. If I go 25 years ago, when I started working in the manufacturing plant, there was a very clear work schedule. There was a work study, and people were doing A, B, C, and D. If I go to a plant today, that's not possible when you have autonomous machines. Machines have a plan, of course, but the people who are governing the machines, they are really solving problems as they arise, and you cannot have a fixed plan. So what is changing? The supervisory roles are changing. The training of the people is changing, and our future is emerging. Paul, you want to add something here? Paul, you are on mute.
Sorry. If you look at the examples, more and more cars today, I've got what they call autonomous speed control. So instead of just putting a car on cruise, it takes over by keeping the distance between your car and the other car. So in other words, the role of the driver then becomes different than always having to keep an eye on the distance. So it basically adds safety, and it also makes the drive a little bit more enjoyable.
And it's not trivial, because the car is making certain decisions for you.
Yep.
And it is safe, because I know my car is a little older one. It does have cruise control, but my problem with the cruise control is that I need to keep track of the car in front of me. But the newer versions have a more autonomous framework. The car can adjust the speed according to the vehicle in the front. And we are going to see a lot more. We are going towards driverless. The car is ready to make more decisions on our behalf. But also, not only at the machine or the vehicle level, we have to understand the teams which work for us. They are also equipped within the governing framework to make decisions on our, like if I was a manager, I was probably making a lot of decisions. Today, the teams are making their own decisions, and they have to be empowered by the governing framework. And more so, what I'm finding is when I started to work, my supervisor knew pretty much what I was doing. And today, as a professor, as a knowledge worker, often my dean is not equipped in the area I am in. He has a role, he has a much bigger role of facilitating my success, but not that supervisory role. So in this slide, you will see how things are changing. You would see automation of tasks previously completed by human labor. A lot more is going under the machine. And it started early enough in the 70s, machines started to come in, robots started to come in. But what is happening now, the machines can talk to machines. We are going into a zone, what we call Industry 4.0, where the IT and OT operational technology can talk to each other. What is happening to our work? What are we doing as machine managers or machine controllers? We are solving problems, we are programming, we are designing how the machines will interact. A lot more knowledge work is coming into play. Supervision, I find it's more facilitation now. Structures, are they changing? If they're not, they have to, because the structures of supervision and control become counterproductive in autonomous work. If an autonomous team is waiting for clearance, it's a high-powered team of professionals, highly paid. If it is waiting for clearance, it is not doing work. And if it is not doing work, we are still billing the customer without giving the value to the customer. So again, I don't know if you're seeing this in your workplace, but this is a very pertinent question, which we are seeing in research, which we are seeing in practice also, and it is a $1 trillion question. And I would say that probably I missed that when I was in mute in the initial stages. It is a $1 trillion question because most of our $1 trillion firms are knowledge work firms. And there are quite a few of them today. And what is happening there is a very flat structure and very autonomous approach. Laura, next slide. Paul, you want to add something here? You're on mute, Paul.
This is here. Okay. Yeah. So as Brad just mentioned, we are moving towards autonomous work structures. For some reason, and this basically includes teams, vehicles, and machines. So it's very important that people working on these teams have good communications lines. They have a structure of supervision that facilitates their work.
Yeah.
When we were working with university students this year, we asked them some questions. Teams. And according to the students, autonomous teams cannot possibly work and will be a colossal failure. Mostly because they kept wanting to put managers back into an autonomous team. But the whole premise of that team is everyone on the team brings a unique skill that's needed for the work. They have to the information that they need, and they have the power to choose what to do next based on a prior list of tasks that the team agrees on with the people that they are building the product for. So in order to move to this future of structure, we also need to change our mindsets. We know, how could it not make any sense to hire smart people and then let them do the work and be the experts that you hired them to be?
It also puts a theoretical question as well as a very pertinent question. Why is that the students tend to still think about having a manager inserted into an autonomous team? It is almost like you have an autonomous car and you decide not to use the autonomous feature. See, when we bring in autonomous teams, these are highly specialized, highly paid teams with people bringing their skills. And now you supervise them. By definition, they are autonomous. They were bought because they were fitting the purpose. And this question has been asked since 1990s. Sorry to bore you with some names, but being an academic, I have to bring in some references here. We had a very important question asked by some scientists, primarily Eric Brynjolfsson, Michael Hitt, and others. We call their field of study as productivity paradox. When in the 90s, a lot of technology started to come on the workplace, people were asking, why is it that productivity is not showing up? Why is it the dollar value is not showing up and going up? So the question was, how are we using the technology? How are we using the features that technology provides us? And if we have an autonomous team, are we using it as a supervised, managed team? If we do that, we do not realize any of the benefits, but we pay the cost. Same way with the autonomous vehicles or the autonomous machines. We may have a very highly capable autonomous machine, and we are using it like an ordinary automated lathe or a miller. So what happens is we pay much more, but we realize much less. And that was resolved around the late 90s. And the same set of authors came up with the productivity paradox has been resolved. And what was the difference? And they said when strategy and structure is aligned to the technology use, because technology is now bringing new sets of requirements. So the structure should be commensurate. And Laura, can you go to the next slide?
Sorry, it's slow for a second. I was thinking about it. It's like hiring an electrician to come fix something in your house and then telling him how to do the job. It's like, why would you hire an electrician if you could do the job yourself? And is the job that you'll micromanage your electrician going to be what you need it to be at the end?
Yeah, so we were chuckling about this when we were marking those exams and looking at the student responses. It was almost like the saying here, hey, you paid for autonomous team, why would you supervise it? Or why would you hire this electrician if you really know what to do? Can you not do it yourself? Or at least you have so much extra money to pay, maybe. So that's the challenge which firms found when they were using automation. That is a similar challenge firms are finding when they are going autonomous. They are still trying to manage autonomous machines like they would manage automated machines. This is a next level frame, next level of knowledge and transfer is needed, knowledge is needed. The strategy for managing is different, structure has to be different too. And here I need to go to another classic article, thesis written by Alfred Chandler in the 60s. He wrote a book which became very famous in the classic book, Strategy and Structure. See, strategy is a means of connecting to the outside world. Your firm does it again and again to connect to the consumer of your services, to connect to the environment where your services are being created. But you have a structure which supports those strategies. So if we were in the artisan work, we had a different strategy and we had a commensurate structure. When we moved to automated work, we had a different strategy, we had a different structure. Now, as we are moving up to autonomous in knowledge work, the structure cannot be very supervisory. It cannot be layers of bureaucracy because the knowledge worker won't move ahead and keep on charging you for whatever the time he or she is billing. And again, more so, some of you are HR managers here and facing a huge amount of turnover in the ranks. If you are in IT, and as I am, I can see holding on to people is very tough. And we let them get frustrated sometimes because we want to control them. So knowledge work, different level of strategy is needed. But again, future is knowledge work. You want to add something, Paul?
Yeah, the term knowledge works, which we'll get to in a little bit, essentially what it means is it involves research, data collection, data analysis, things that we normally do in our heads, and using the machines, the computers, and other algorithms and things like this. So we're going to be getting into this in a little bit more.
So if you can't change your processes, you can't change your structure or strategy, or vice versa. If you want to change your strategy, you have to change your structures and you have to change your processes. So how would I describe this? If you are working on an autonomous strategy or automating activities in your firm, you want to maybe like IKEA, where they allow the customers to come inside their go down and pick up their favorite bed or the chair or the machine and take that out. They had to change their structure. There were no more people pulling out things from the go down, but there were people facilitating the customer who was working for IKEA now. Interesting. We engaged the customers to do self-serve. That happened in superstores also. But again, look at the change it was in the previous model. The goods were delivered outside. Now we were getting the customers to pick it themselves. And it was a realization. One day, the manager in IKEA had so much line up, they were not able to service. They were like denial of service. So some of the familiar customers asked, why don't we help ourselves? Why can't we go inside? And the manager struck with an idea, wow, I can improve my work and improve my service. But that structure was changed, but so did the processes. And this is something which we need to realize. If we are changing our strategy, we're not changing the structure and processes behind. The structure will pull the strategy to the old normal. If we have a command and control structure, while our strategy is moving towards an autonomous organization, everyone works and the workflow is smooth, there will be a problem. Paul, you want to add?
No.
Yeah.
So I can do so. So the question here is, why should you care about these trends? More specifically, in what ways will the shifts towards autonomous structures and strategies impact your company? So this is something you just may want to put in your mind as we continue with the seminar, the webinar.
So why should we worry? And COVID has shown it to us a lot. COVID suddenly put us into our basement offices or homes, doing a lot of work from home. Some people were not able to function because their work required them to be in office. Some people started to flourish. Some people tried new technology for the first time, became a fan of it. Some people found that new technology was crummy. And again, you might have seen, we had some difficulties. Sometimes the sound goes off. At the starting of the workshop, I was frozen. And again, it creates a lot of challenges, especially a lot of people had to adapt. Now, knowledge work is a new way of working for a lot of us. We are not doing any manual work. We are not giving any instructions. We are sitting down and researching. We are finding answers to problems. We are working in much smaller teams, hardly supervision. And a lot of what we are doing is assisted by artificial intelligence. We are designing and training systems so that they can do what we would like them to do. So this is a major change for every organization. And it requires us to learn how to manage knowledge workers, or I would rather not say the word manage, facilitate knowledge workers. We don't have project managers. We have probably Scrum Masters, and we have one in our team here. And Scrum Master, what they do is they remove obstacles. They bring the customer's point of view to the team. And they're not like command and control, hey, do this or do that. They will bring the customer's point of view. They will remove any resource requirements. A lot of it is changing. And what is the implication for other major aspects or work we do? Now here we have to understand that there is human intelligence and there is machine intelligence. And then a collective of that is organizational intelligence. Now, I find it often, and again, to acknowledge, COVID has done something for me, a knowledge worker. I like my office. I'm stuck in my office sometimes, or on my phone. So much so, sometimes I get timeouts when I go upstairs to join my family. But what is happening is the communication is very electronic. Yesterday, I can tell you, I was asked to do a task by the family and I didn't read the text. So the communication was made, but did it come inside my brain and was it scheduled? No. And I was in trouble. I was in trouble right away. But that puzzle is becoming bigger. Sometimes we communicate, we send an email and we think our work is done, but there is no completion of the loop. So part of it is easier because we are able to train certain tools which can remind us. They are AI tools. I get an email from an AI tool every morning. Hey, Professor Maheshwari, did you look at this email or did you respond to that student? They are reading my email. The AI tools are reading my emails. But again, they're not human to intelligence tools. There is still a limitation. they do not have an idea. They're getting better, but they do not have a full idea of how we make decisions, how we prioritize. So what organizations are finding is they need to adjust to an optimal mix of natural intelligence and artificial intelligence. Now, how do we use these tools better? That is a big challenge. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah.
You're on mute.
I wasn't. So anyways, the second challenge, which we're getting also into a little bit more, is if you recall the continuum that we talked about, is that when we talk about the artisan who basically has a lot of knowledge that they're using themselves, it's the real big challenge here is how do you externalize that knowledge so it can become part of the team's collective intelligence. So we'll talk about that in a little bit as well.
Just a little bit about how teams and how organizations are enabling autonomous teams. One of the things that we're not going to talk a lot about, but that's an essential factor to this, is a certain level of trust. You have to trust that the people that you hired know what they say they know, and also that they are capable and competent to do the work. This falls into the general principles of what an autonomous team might look like. So they need to have that competency. They have to have that mix of people and skills to do the work. Those people need to be able to work together in a team and collaborate. That's usually where the role of the facilitator comes in. Sometimes that person is called the Scrum Master. Sometimes they have other titles, but basically that person helps the team assess how are we working, how can we work better, and does any refereeing that might need to be done in that team. Also, the team takes ownership of the work that they're doing. They don't report to a supervisor. They decide the work that they can do in a given period of time, and they are responsible for delivering it on time. Usually that time period is about 2 weeks, and they call it a sprint. So at the end of a sprint, there needs to be some buyer, the client, or the management team of the organization can come in and test. Does it work? Does it do what we want it to do? Is this the direction we want to go? Those kind of questions get answered at the end. And it's part of their process of continuous improvement. So at the end of that 2 weeks, after that work piece has been developed, the team gets together and says, how can we improve the product? And also, how can we improve ourselves? Because the idea for this team is that this team is going to stay together and solve problems like this for a long time. It's not just project-based. It's the work comes to the team instead of building a team around the work. By doing that, they increase the efficiency that a team can have because they already have developed ways of working that are efficient and effective for them. And there are several different frameworks that people can use in creating autonomous teams, and a lot of them have come out of software, but they don't necessarily only apply to software, except for maybe extreme programming, which, you know, is pretty software intensive. Scrum is one of them. It helps people and teams create value through, and they help the person that you're delivering a product to is called a product owner. So they help the product owner figure out, what do you want this thing to do at the end? You know, what's really important for you? How is this going to be prioritized? And, you know, how can we do it? The owner and the team that's building it work together collaboratively so that when we get to the end of the project, we know we actually want it. Kanban is a way of visualizing work. You may have seen a Kanban board before. It usually to do into the doing column and then into the done. So when you have visible work, you can see where the blockages are and you can understand how the workflow is and you can make changes. So those are important aspects that organizations are using frameworks and principles that they use in order to make teams more autonomous in their work.
So in this area, we have experimented a few things at the Future Lab. And again, I would like to bring in some anecdotes of success in our community. First, let's celebrate our success. One of our friends who runs a very successful manufacturing organization in the region, he told me over lunch, we have a 32-hour worksheet, 32-hour shift. I said, how? And he says, we have autonomous teams, but they are geographically co-located. No, they are separated. So one team is working for 16 hours here in Windsor, and another team far away in another time zone picks up and works 16 hours. Again, two sets of people there. But the teams are autonomous. They are very, very coordinated. And the productivity is amazing, and the customers are very, very happy. This is a multi-die shop, a very advanced level of programming. And in fact, customers want to see the design intricately done before any manufacturing happens. So they almost create digital twins, and customers are happy, and they can produce a lot more. And they are extremely, extremely busy. They have increased significant numbers of knowledge workers working for them. The other thing is, Laura did mention trust, and some of the companies are struggling to hire. And so we came up with a mechanism, hey, can we create farm teams for companies locally? So we've experimented with some companies which are friends of Future Lab and supporters. We started to give them students, third year and fourth year, who start working on projects for the companies. And the outcome has been fantastic because they're ready to run when they graduate. Generally, when you bring in a new member to the team, the member has to learn a lot about the organizational knowledge. How does it work? What are the intricacies internally? So this externalization happens through farm teams, plus externalization happens through creatively organizing work, sometimes across time zones. Paul?
So some of this conversation that we had in previous workshops in this series, we did talk about community of practice. Some of you might have had the opportunity to work with these. Essentially, it's when a group of expert workers get together and to create, to share, to create new knowledge. It's the idea of pooling their intelligence and knowledge together and then sharing it amongst others. And what usually happens with this is that as you share knowledge with other people can build on it. So the knowledge base continues to grow in this way. We also did some, I think, the first workshop on the SCCI model. And this is a process that was developed by Nonaka in Japan, probably in the 90s. And it's the idea of getting people to talk about their expertise. And in that way, using storytelling and describing what they do, they can externalize what's inside of their knowledge. And then once that knowledge is talked about in these teams, people will then build on it. They'll combine it, and then after that, they'll bring it back and add to the knowledge store that they have. So in other words, it's kind of a cyclical process where you externalize by talking about things. It begins, so the knowledge which is inside people's heads begins to emerge out in public. It's then combined, and then it's brought back into the knowledge pool of the team. So every cycle that you go through this, there's a continuous build of knowledge for future use. And just finally, storytelling. You probably all had the experience of finding a good person to tell stories, and there's a lot of knowledge that gets passed on through stories. We formalize this in parables. People talk about this. So a lot of knowledge, especially in previous human history, when people didn't use written communication, they would use oral history. So they would pass on the knowledge through storytelling, and also using metaphors. So you basically said, what I'm doing is like this. So the attempt here is to link what your expertise and knowledge is into the mind of the other person by connecting different ideas. So there's many different ways of externalizing knowledge and expanding the knowledge store of a team working in an autonomous operation.
So to bring it to a conclusion, we have limited time. I wanted to add a case study, and there are so many we can bring in. I can start with one where Fortune 50 in the region came in, and we were talking about the challenges of autonomous work. But I thought I'll bring in one which balances our work flow, but also points out that technology, we may have a technology bias, but we have to balance. It's not, sometimes there is an expectation that technology is there, it will take care of us, but it doesn't work as well all the time. So people are important too, and how people are important. And I'm bringing one case study, but again, it is from a system which all of us connect with. So I was thinking, because we have a spectrum of people attending, not all are manufacturers or not all are from one industry. So we thought we'll bring in something which is common to all of us. And again, Canadian medical system, we like it, but we also suffer it sometimes. It is still one of the better ones in the world. But if you are unfortunately going through it, you sometimes wonder why they are doing this. Can they do it better? We sometimes assume that all the parties in our healthcare system are connected and the workflow is seamless. The question is it? Is it really seamless? I can just tell, day before, my daughter is an athlete, got an ankle injury, we go to the doctor, and the new system doctor has is quite autonomous. Things are transferred automatically to the other providers, the specialists, therapists and whatnot. And the doctor tells me, go do the x-ray and you can get it there. Said, where is the note? And said, no note has been sent automatically through the system to the x-ray clinic. We go to the clinic, we stand in a line, we come to the counter, and there is no note. So it's not just the system. System has the capabilities, doesn't mean that it's connected. People are important too, and people have to get used to it. It's this human technology interaction which is still important. Next slide, please. So it is still a need for balancing autonomous work with expert participation. I came to this community around 2007, and my first research project was with the hospital. And at the time, we were big way driving electronic medium and electronic systems, and even still we are working on it. If you have connected to the hospitals, you may find that they have gone through a major implementation in April. And sometimes doctors are very frustrated because of that. But we have to understand that these autonomous systems or automated systems, as we have them, will not work without the right input of people. And the translation to those systems is not automatic. So in one of the projects, we were shadowing a unit in the hospital. And my student was observing the doctors, and suddenly Dr. B, I would say, not take the name. We don't have the permission. Dr. B, who's a big man, about 240 pounds, but very, very kind man, very well known in our society, ran. He ran down 3 floors to radiology. And somehow he had a gut feeling that the numbers communicated on behalf of which he had to take a quick action and take the patient to a surgery were not right. So he had to go run in to see raw data, which his hunch was right, was miscommunicated, and he did not have to take the patient to that emergency surgery as the data which was translated was coming to him, was communicated. Now, we asked him, why was that? Because as researchers, we ask a lot of questions. And one of the top tools we have. And so the organization has gone through a systemic change. A new system has been adopted, and systemic change led to a structural change. There was a supervisory role which was taken off, but it was expected the system was communicating the knowledge, but that communication was not foolproof yet. They took off the supervisory role, and I'm bringing in another side or perspective because it may appear that, hey, supervisory role is not needed, but till the autonomous systems are working and the structure is in place. A lot of companies I'm seeing are going through transition, and in transition, errors can happen. So there was a head nurse, which was there in the hospital, whose role was a lot transitioning of shifts. And in the shift transitioning, the head nurse role was removed and the data being inputted was incorrect. So doctor had a gut feeling because this didn't lead like a plausible number, so he ran through. So that's another different aspect of the challenge. Sometimes we have a bias towards technology and a new technology to solve it all, but it's not true. We need to create a balance between the strategy of implementing technologies and commensurate structures and processes. And the transition is a tough journey part, and we need to be careful in that. I think we need to wrap up and have some time for questions. And Marian, over to you. Marian, you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mosharari and your team. Just wanted to remind everyone that if you have any questions, please place them by using the Q&A button or feature at the bottom of your screen. There is one question that arose, and I wanted to put forth, and it is, what do you consider to be the most #1 prevalent change that is happening in the workplace today that companies should take notice of when they're looking at either a strategy or a structure?
I would say #1 would depend on the company, at what stage they are. See, we cannot put all companies into one frame. Some are still very successful with the artisan mode. Some are still creating a lot of value through automation. Some have a high prevalence of autonomous work and knowledge work. So companies, the strategy and structure should align with whatever stage they are. That would be my advice. It won't be like, if you're in artisan mode and you take off all supervision, that will be counterproductive. But if you're in autonomous mode and you continue to command and control, that would be counterproductive as well. So strategy would be to first assess where you are, and then look at the structure which would support that strategy, the processes which would support the structure and the strategy.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And as if there are no other questions, we'll just watch for the other ones coming, and we can always address them at the end of this session. We're going to move on to our next presenter now. Just before I do, I wanted to remind everyone who is on the webinar that this is Economic Development Week. And so we welcome everyone to that. Our business retention and expansion team is very active when it comes to Economic Development Week. And one of the things that we usually implement is an economic development survey to all of our employers. This is now ongoing until June, and that has been sent out to quite an extensive list of employers. So we're just encouraging everyone to please take note of that and complete it if you can. You can also access the survey at investwindsoressex.com or on the Workforce WindsorEssex website. And now it is my pleasure to welcome our next presenter, and that is Ina Turkova, who is a corporate HR manager with a local company, AV Gauge and Fixture Incorporated. They are a design manufacturing company. By the way, congratulations to you, Ina, and to AV Gauge on your recent requalification as a gold member for Best Managed Companies in 2022. Ina's extensive background and experience is really a welcomed addition to today's workshop, as she shares practical knowledge and expertise from the manufacturing sector. Although her insights and success stories, they can be applied to any business or sector. Welcome, and over to you, Ina.
Thank you very much, Marian. Thank you for, we're very proud to be a recipient of Best Managed Companies for the 6th consecutive year. And thank you to Dr. Maheshwari and Paul and Laura for their insight. So I'll just take a second to upload my presentation so you all can partake. All right. So I hope it's up and everybody can hear me well. So my presentation today will be actually a showcase of what Dr. Maheshwari was talking about, the CESI model, and creating community of practice through sharing knowledge and by telling stories. So my story today will be about how AV Gauge and Fixture embarked on a journey to build sustainable organizational structure to support our strategic goals, and talk to you and share with you some methods to knowledge transfer, again through adding a little bit of models along the way. So the first thing is I want to start with sharing this quote with you. And this quote is by, Peter Drucker, who actually is a guru of leadership development. So Peter Drucker invented such concepts as such models as management by objective, which a lot of you are familiar with, especially the people from the manufacturing environment. As well as Peter Drucker talked about a concept of a knowledge worker, right? And he claimed this to be the future of any organization. But what his quote that was published in his article in Forbes in October 1998 was that most managers are made, not born. There has to be systemic work on the supply, the development, and the skills of tomorrow's management. It cannot be left to change. So if we can translate that to not just managers, but any knowledge worker that we would like, ultimately to have in our workforce, this becomes very true. So basically, to sustain knowledgeable and competent workforce, organizations must work at it and invest time and resources in this process. So how do we do that? Okay, just a second. I'm trying to change my slide here and it doesn't work for some reason. Okay, here we go. So how do we do that? We do that through implementing strategic training and development. So just to remind those of you who might be using those two terms interchangeably, the training is actually providing skills that employees need today to get their current jobs done, maybe close some skill gaps, or even as part of onboarding of the new team members, right? As opposed to development, which is actually providing skills and knowledge that employees will need in their future roles, whether by being promoted or by changing to another division, as well as for their current roles, but in the future. And we all know that nature of work is changing, and as Dr. Maheshwari's teams just explained to us, the skills that will be required in the future, even in our current roles, might be very much different from our current roles. So we need to make sure we develop our people, right, in order to be able to perform that job in the future as well. So both training and development, right, should be present in the organization that is actually proactive and forward thinking. This is what makes organizations strategic. When you're looking into the future and you're planning towards the future with developing the plans and strategies to be successful. Both elements, training and development, should involve transfer of knowledge activities. So if we look at this little chart that I created, and by all means, this is not academic, but this is something that I would like to share with you. So transfer of knowledge is actually a loop, right? So or a cycle that provides value and benefits to both an individual, an employee, and the organization as a whole, creating a win-win situation and more so sustainable synergies over time. So if we look at this little person climbing the stairs, so it starts with basic training, right? So the individual is getting training, but the organization is getting skills, right, that are now part of that organization, or organizational knowledge. As the person gets promoted, probably to a more, gain more responsibilities or authority in the work, so the person gets the promotion, but the organization gets the experience of the person, right? Different experiences through promotions. The next step of this way is that the individual is moving along the career path, getting the career with the company, maybe in one company or different companies, doesn't matter. Hopefully it's within one company. Well, that's what the organization is getting, is engagement, right? So the fully 100% involvement, 100% effort put by the individual towards the betterment of the company and success. Well, at some point, as we move to the next step, we can say now that this person is highly knowledgeable. It's a knowledge worker at this point of their career path, or at this point of time with their time within an organization. The company then, or the organization, gets value out of that person. This is where the value actually starts, to work towards the organizational successes. But we can't forget the very last stage is actually when the person becomes not just an expert in the field or in their particular job that he or she is doing, but when the person gets to the stage where he or she wants and needs and feel the need to share that knowledge with others within the organization or within the communities. And this is where the person becomes a mentor. When that loop closes, right? With that loop closing, and the person is mentoring somebody, right? The transfer of knowledge occurs, and then obviously the organization wins in sustainability. And we can now say that this organization is not only successful to get to the bottom line, but also sustainable in the future because their younger generation or younger workers, less experienced workers are being properly trained and the knowledge is sustained within the organization. So a little bit about AV gauge and fixture, obviously, and I'll tell you how we approached all this, changes, and especially the strategic planning project. So AV gauge was founded in 1985 and has been privately owned by a single person for over 35 years. A few years back, we added some equity partners, and when they came on board, the company felt the need to change into a more strategic organization in order to maintain its leadership position in our little check fixture niche of the toolmaking industry. So we started, the first step was that in 2017, we applied and received Best Managed accreditation. And as we already mentioned, this year, we have been requalified for the 6th consecutive year of Best Managed, now as a gold member. And so AV Gauge is basically a global leader in designing, manufacturing, and certifying checking fixtures, which is the quality control tool for other automotive parts manufacturers. We also have an automation division, which custom designs and builds automated equipment using the most current technology and software. And of course, we offer above average benefits, competitive wages, innovative equipment, state-of-the-art facility, and a clean professional work environment. Some of the pictures here depict what we do. So if you look at those pictures, for those of you who are not from manufacturing industry, the fixture is so if you can look at the red parts marked red, these are actually the automotive part, and everything that is around that red part is actually called check fixture. This is just an easy way to depict it. So when we embarked on that journey to become more strategic organization, our team, our senior management team also began working with a third-party consultant on developing and implementing strategic charters. So just by looking at this slide, these are some of our products. So check fixtures, as I mentioned, jigs and head appliances. We do some automation. We do some carbon fiber and other composites materials that we use in our products. We also manufacture bases and structures as part of precision fabrication. We do some 3D printing, and we do cubes and other quality control systems. So customer-wise, we are approximately 400 customers worldwide servicing right now. And among them are OEMs, tier 1 and 2 suppliers within automotive, aerospace, and marine industries. So one of the charters that I mentioned that senior management started working on is actually focus on developing and improving our ESG metrics. ESG stands, of course, for environmental, social, and governance metrics, which is one of the things that investors, customers, suppliers, and even job seekers check today with the companies before doing any business with them, or even before applying for jobs. So it is very important, to remember for organizations that are going through strategic transformation to, manage their ESG metrics as well. So in terms of the facilities, we have 4 facilities in Canada. We have a facility in Kentucky, United States, and in Querétaro, Mexico. We operate 2 shifts. We currently have over 300 employees globally. And so another charter that we're working on as an organization is called Grow Our People. This is where the strategic training and development piece of the puzzle ties into that knowledge transfer. So our global locations are staffed with local residents. However, we do send key people from our Canadian locations, so to say trainers, to ensure local staff is well trained, supervised, and by this we ensure equal quality of our products and services delivered to all our global customers, regardless where the production takes place. The transfer of knowledge process may take months and even years, depending on what job we're talking about. So our expatriate workers, our trainers, are being supported with appropriate accommodations for their family, remuneration, and legal counseling while they're on international assignments. So, so Dr. Maheshwari and his team talked about how organizational structure has to change or go through the certain transformations in order to make that transition to more autonomous work or to more knowledge-based work available and working. So, so this is, again, just from my experience, this flower that I created depicts certain important elements of any organizational structure that wants to be sustainable, right? So the first one I would like to talk about is safety. But before that, maybe I should just explain the organizational structure is the vehicle for executing corporate strategy and the means through which the organization generates actually behaviors necessary to execute its business strategy. So the first one that I want to talk about is safety. And by safety, we mean physical safety, psychosocial or psychological safety, and of course, job security. So what we do at AVGH with regards to safety, we do participate in various health and safety programs in the community, whether led by WSIB or Ministry of Labor, such as Health and Safety Excellence Program, or before that it was called Safety Groups. So we spent over 15 years, I think, in total in safety groups. So safety is one of our priorities here, as well as we work on violence and harassment initiatives. We have like zero tolerance to violence and harassment, and for the most part this is very respectful workplace, and this is just one of our successes here at AVGH. As well as talking about psychosocial safety, we did implement the EAP programs for employees, so all kinds of employee assistance programs, whether it's mental health support or financial support, or even legal support if needed. In the job security category, we did add customer diversification. So we added the automation piece as opposed to, in addition to our tooling piece, to ensure we are branching out to new and more future-oriented technologies in order to remain sustainable and ensure the jobs are there for all our staff in the future. The next piece that I want to talk about is the organization, it starts with having an organizational chart, and not just having it, but have an updated one that depicts your actual organizational structure. Updated job descriptions, right? Written work instructions suppository for each job or task that should be accessible to all your workers. Now, it doesn't have to be held in the binders, right? Nowadays, we have everything stored digitally, but all the workers do have access to those work instructions at any point of time they need. We also hired a process improvement specialist. And we are looking at the ways to make our manufacturing processes more lean. We did add some manufacturing elements already, as well as we started to do the real budgeting. You'll be surprised, a lot of small and medium-sized companies, from my experience, not really were engaging in budgeting. This is actually a great tool to, to implement your strategic planning. And that helps a lot to, ensure that you're not missing all the important parts in your strategy. The next piece is agility or flexibility. So Dr. Maheshwari's team talked about flattening the organizational structure, so to say, flattening the organizational chart, and especially we went through that process when we had a few retirements, and that was our few retirements in the company. So instead of holding on to those job descriptions of the people who are retiring, that acquire a lot of power and authority and responsibilities within them, we divided or divested, so to say, those responsibilities to a group of people. So now more employees are actually involved in managerial and supervisory work. And as a result of that, the organizational structure has become more flat with more participation from the workforce. Another important flexibility and agility elements are increased use of special project and cross-functional teams. So again, when Dr. Maheshwari talked from moving from automated to autonomous work and autonomous teams, this is exactly what's going on, right? So now we trust our experts or people who were selected for those teams with their competencies, with their knowledge and skills to carry out certain projects. And even if they are from different divisions or departments, we're empowering them towards more autonomous work. So this is definitely happening here at AV Gauge. We started actually seriously looking at succession management with some successes that I'm gonna share with you at the very end of my presentation. We split duties to several managers, as I said, when somebody retired. Oops, sorry, that moved. Okay, so we're still in the slide. The next piece is communication and transparency. So we created the system of sharing the information through digital employee handbook, now sent to employees' personal emails. And so again, with electronic newsletters, as well sent to our personal emails of our employees. Employee handbook was updated for all facilities that now unified our policies within all the facilities and all the divisions. We improved continuous improvement MEMR systems. We implemented pulse surveys to actually see what our workforce is thinking, where the barriers are, or what our points of dissatisfaction may be. We implemented more frequent performance feedback systems. So we actually do semi-annual performance reviews. And in some points, we also implemented what is the big trend right now is continuous feedback or constant feedback systems. Now, on the participation piece, where employees have the voice. We are tapping into new segments of the workforce. So we are bringing more women into skilled trades. We are bringing more YEP students, more apprentices into the workforce. And we're trying to focus on actually building the career paths for them. It's not just a job anymore. It's your life. It's your career path. You're going to progress from here to here. You see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you see how you are part of a bigger picture within this organization. We're trying to engage our retired people to become, some kind of trainers or expert share points to our younger and newer workers. And of course, management lead by example through all these procedures. We do we're trying to glue all these petals of this flower, right, with a strong organizational culture, which is the actual glue of all these pieces, right? You can't, in some organizations, even culture substitutes organization piece. So if your culture is really strong, you'll be able to get away with some elements of the organizational structures. So how do we create a culture? So as I said, management lead by example for all this implementation of these charters. We put posters, right, with our philosophies, with our mission and vision. We restarted after COVID our team building activities in a social setting where people can, network and communicate in a more free way with each other. We're trying to implement some charitable events. We brought back special lunches. We do celebrate milestones, years of service, retirements, and other celebrations of the employees. So when let me just see. Okay, yeah. Okay, so when we talked in one of our charters, right, we talked about being strategic is to not forget about succession management. So as you know, organizations may lose people to sudden death, medical incapacities, personal circumstances, burnout, stress, retirement, voluntary and involuntary separations. But traditionally, succession management focused only on the VPs, chairman of the board, executive director, etc. More strategic organizations do focus succession management on middle management and supervisories as well. However, what we found at AV Gauge is that there are certain individuals that actually acquired unique and specific skills and knowledge. And they're not necessarily supervisors or your executives. This is just, people here and there in every department. There is like a knowledge center of knowledge point person. And those people are often overlooked during the succession management process. So, it is important for the organizations to remember and look for those individuals that actually hold the key or the power to the majority of your processes, and identify those individuals, analyze their positions, and make sure you have a plan or succession management plan for to replace those people if something happens to them or when they leave the organization. So in a sense, succession management, right, is what, who, and how, right? So what is determining critical roles in the organization that needs to be filled after, if in case something happens. Who, identifying possible successors, so who you're gonna put in those places, and how you develop those people that you already identified as being successors. So all this now becomes part of transfer of knowledge, right? So you have to develop those people once you identify them. And that ultimately leads to an outcomes such as continuity in leadership, retention, talent management, and more that we're not going to talk about today.
Ina, I was wondering, being conscious of our time here, because we're coming close, is there some way you could transition also to, I know you have a couple of really good examples of how you moved people
Yes.
up the ladder. If we could look at that.
Okay, so this is my next slide, and this is how we transfer knowledge at AV Gauge. So again, timeline plays an important role in transferring the knowledge and developing an employee. Senior positions may require more time, others could be filled within a year, but essentially this is our plan on how we strategically develop our employees and make sure the transfer of knowledge is appropriately done. So we start obviously with onboarding, starts with new hire orientation, can last up to 6 months. We use technical skills matrix to ensure they are progressing well and as planned. Then employees who are identified for succession management are getting short-term rotation in other departments to understand the synergy of creating a product or service. Then they may be offered short-term as a short-term replacement within the same department area. Let's say when their manager is going on vacation or just as on a trial basis. Then temporary placement in other departments in new roles to put them out of their comfort zone, right? And to make them learn new aspects of the business. So again, they have the overall picture. Then we're going to offer them international assignments in a supervisory or leadership role. Upon the return, they're going to shadow a member of senior management team, and through coaching and mentoring process, they're going to learn all they can from that senior management team person. Then they're going to work alongside senior management person on certain projects. Then they're going to take on the projects, small projects themselves, and try them on their own under the supervision of senior management. And then, of course, they're going to assume the new role. So here's my success stories. Very briefly, we have 2 individuals. The first one is Alex, and this all happened to him in a span of 10 years. Started as a machinist, decided to switch to fabrication, was identified as high potential employee, became a short-term replacement for fabrication supervisor, was sent to our Michigan location to supervise fabrication area. Upon return, learned 3 axis and base CNC programming and worked as a programmer, got involved in Joint Health and Safety Committee and was trained as a certified management rep, got trained on working at heights and elevated platform, got involved in managing 2 of our smaller plants alongside and mentored by the manufacturing manager first, and then after manufacturing manager retirement, assumed full management of full plants as well as CNC and fabrication departments in this plant. Another success story is Matt, and Matt spent a little bit longer, 15 years, to get to where he is today, but also he started as a machinist apprentice, took interest in fixture building, developed further skills in the assembly department, joined health and safety as a work rep, then was identified as a high performance employee, became short-term replacement for manufacturing leaders, was sent to help supervise our Kentucky plant in the US, and in time assumed full management of that facility. Upon return from the international assignment, remotely helped to manage Mexican facility in Querétaro, started shadowing director of operation, who is part of the senior management team, on some projects and while being mentored, started running small projects for senior management, worked alongside director of manufacturing on some assignments, and after the director of manufacturing was promoted to the president, assumed director of manufacturing role. So this is, we ran out of time, but I'm sure if you have any questions, we have another minute or so.
There weren't any additional questions for you, Ina. However, I will say that was quite a comprehensive presentation. I think if anybody had questions, they were probably already answered. There is one, though, that did come up, and it said that today's new workforce is very different from when most companies started, a company certain as yours. What would you suggest is a fundamental approach when including this new demographic of workers into a business's forward-thinking strategy and structure?
Well, diversity and inclusion is the key, right? So our world of manufacturing was predominantly male and I should say predominantly white until certain years ago. And now we're seeing, women in the workplace. We're seeing all kinds of ethnic backgrounds doing all kinds of jobs. If the organization doesn't commit themselves, right, to include those individuals in their workforce, nothing good will come out of that. And this is where you'll see, mental stress issues, you will see harassment issues, and you don't want that in your facilities. So we had to change. Luckily, our harassment programs are very successful, and we've been able to smoothly transition and include this diverse workforce within our workforce. So we've been very lucky, but I know some companies really struggle with those issues.
Thank you. Thank you for those terrific examples and that insight. And I also need to say thank you to the both of you, to both Dr. Mashwari and also to Ina and the Dr. Mashwari's team, that in a very short period of time today, you've provided us with a full suite of resources, best practices, direct takeaways, indirect takeaways, and it encourages all of us to really deeply consider why forward thinking and knowledge engagement, why it really matters. I think that's what's really key. And for us at Economic Development, that's a large component of our business retention and expansion endeavors as well. I just want to remind everyone, aside that if you're a business or company who registered today, then you have some real homework to do. Please watch for an email from us that will have a link to the presentations for today. Also, we'd ask you to watch in the near future as we consider developing this series a little further later on in the year. Having said that, I'm going to sign off and say thank you to everyone and have a great Economic Development Week, and thank you to all of our presenters and speakers today.